Did you know people have been saying yes and since ancient Rome? Welcome to Theater History Thursdays. Today's topic is improvisational theater. The golden rule of improv is to first agree to what a fellow actor has suggested for a scene, but then to always expand upon it, summed up very famously in the phrase yes and. And while people in ancient Rome might not have uttered those exact words, improvised theater has existed in some capacity since those early days. Some of the first known improvisational theater were massed improvised farces in ancient Rome. A Talon farce originated around 300 BCE and was very popular. Because everything was improvised, documentary evidence is limited, and what we know is mainly found in scenes that were printed on vases. Dialogue was based on a loose subject that was decided shortly before the performances, and much of it was pantomimed. Commedia dell'arte was similar, with actors improvising their performances based on scenarios or outlines. Performing in the streets or open fields, commedia used stock characters and created dialogue and physical bits that reflected current events and local scandals to keep the audiences engaged. This form of theater was very popular from the 16th to the 18th centuries and eventually spread across Europe. In the modern age, many credit Dudley Riggs as being one of the first to create performances based on suggestions from an audience. His theatrical style was very influenced by the time that he spent in vaudeville, which already used semi-improvised sketches. Riggs took this even further, though, by asking the audience to provide a subject, and his troupe created a complete sketch based from that. After successfully touring with his troupe, Brave New Workshop, which is the name of his troupe, settled in Minneapolis in 1958 and are still working today. It was around this time that Viola Spolin developed her own improvisational technique, which we will be covering in greater detail in next week's video. Second City in Chicago and Toronto emerged from her legacy and began the careers of many of the original cast members of Saturday Night Live, including John Belushi, Dan Aykroyd, and Gilda Radner. Improv Olympic in Chicago and the Groundlings in Los Angeles were also inspired by Spolin's work. One of the most prominent companies that developed from Spolin's philosophy is the Upright Citizens Brigade, which began in Chicago in 1990, moved to New York City in 1996, and is now also working in Los Angeles. Although a lot of people might think of comedy when they hear improv, improvisational theater often intersects with political and avant-garde theater. During the 1960s, the Open Theater in New York City built on the work of Viola Spolin, Jerzy Grotowski's Poor Theater, and other influences to create full productions that explored political and social issues. Theater of the Oppressed not only takes suggestions from the audience, but actually works with audience members to create performances that promote social change. Ruth Zipporah and the Action Theater used physically based improvisation to develop work on the West Coast in which performances would have no scripts or planned characters or scenarios. Bats Improv, which was founded in 1986 in San Francisco, improvisationally develops full-length plays and musicals to this day. While NPTC does not present improvised performances, our mission holds many of the elements of modern improvisational forms. We are always very focused on the audience experience and never pretend that they aren't also fully present with the actors on stage. And all of our work encourages and embraces a socio-political focus in the development of new plays. That's all for Theater History Thursdays. Tune in next week where we will be talking more about Viola Spolin's improvisational technique and her incredibly rich legacy.